Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. Before we get to tidying up the bonsai tree, which is the title of the video, we'll have a look at what's been tidied up out here. We're coming along, we've done some major pruning, there's more to do, nowhere near finished, but we've made a good start, and we've taken down some pretty thick stuff. And we've had a good sweep up in the yard, so all the dead leaves and everything right back to the edges. We have a mountain of stuff that's got to be bagged up and taken up the tip. But I've done some basic pruning on the lower story here. The wisteria is not going to be allowed to go above the fence next year. So basically the structure of the plant there, I will put some wires along the fence and we will have a nice green mass of wisteria covering up the fence. And if it ventures more than a centimetre above the top of the fence, it will get chopped. That's why. Now I can't get up there and it won't pull down. So it's all been cut off, it'll just have to die back. And it will just be dead sticks in the tree. It's not a very healthy tree anyway. You wouldn't want that as a bonsai, would you? Look at it. Look at all the dieback. It's got nice bright green foliage at the base though. Anyway, so we've been tidying up out here and now we've got to do some autumn tidying on my Scots Pine. Okay, so this is just an autumn tidy up really. A health check, bug check and dead needle removal. The main reason for getting rid of the tight clusters of dead needles is to let the light in and let the air flow through. So we'll literally start down the bottom, and old needles just fall off. They don't need a lot of help. But when you've got spiders that make webs, they tend to bind them all together and hold them on the tree. But it's literally a matter of just teasing them off. And in doing so, I'm going to dislodge some of my wiring, obviously, which will have to be put back afterwards. But we'll have a look at the basic shape of the tree once we can see it. I mean, these are probably 2- and 3-year-old needles that are coming off now. They need to come off. They serve no purpose. Once they've gone brown, they are nothing more than in the way. And as I said, it'll help let the light in and let the breeze through the branches. So, and I'm being silly, aren't I? We need to start at the top, don't we? Because if we get all the dead needles off at the bottom and then go up to the top, all the dead needles are going to fall on the lower branches. So we'll start at the top. And this is a little bit above my comfort because I'm short. Actually, I'm not short, it's everybody else is too tall. I think that's the reason. Vertically challenged, they call it in the political correctness. When I was at school, you'd just be a short ass. And that was sometimes your nickname. And if you got a nickname when I was at school, then you had one. And that was it. Not a lot you could do about it. Doing around the back here. As I said, I'm going to be dislodging some of my wiring here, which will reset. Once I've got the needles out of the way and we can see what we're doing, then we'll go back and have a look and see if wiring needs putting back where it was. But the tree will look a lot more open when these dead needles are off. Also looks a lot more healthy. Now this tree got wired for density so that the pads look nice and dense, and when we come to spring and growth starts again, I'll take the wiring off and we will revisit the logic that we did, simply because if the pads are too dense and the light doesn't get in, you're effectively removing your chance for back budding. And your back budding is your density for the future, not for now, that's for later. Your current year's growth is your density for now, and you know, that was based on things you did some time ago. That's the whole thing with pines. It's all what's the tree going to do next, and how can I encourage it to do what I want rather than it wants. They all have a mind of their own, don't they? Huge, big, dense, massive needles here, and I was because I've got a white pine now that's frightened the life out of me. Quite honestly, I've started to search for YouTube videos for specifically for autumn care for Japanese white pines, or single flush pines, whatever you want. They come into both categories. Japanese white pine is a single flush pine, but it turns out that there is work to do in the autumn, so we might be doing a bit of work on my white pine. Won't be much, but and this is one of the things that's important. If you want back budding, you need the light to get in, yeah, and you need the light to be able to get in beyond the canopy, beyond that dense, nice, healthy growth that you put on this year, because that's not where the back budding's going to be. It's going to be behind it. So the light needs to get in, and that's actually quite important. I think I've got most of that off at the top now. Already looks thinner and brighter, but yeah, it's all geared up to the light getting in, and in addition to that, the areas where the back budding is hopefully going to take place needs to be clear and not all covered in dead needles, which would exclude the light. So this removing of all these dead needles is actually quite important for that back budding process to take place during the winter and then towards spring. I mean, obviously with your deciduous trees, once the leaves drop, the growth stops, but that's not the case with pines. They might slow right up, but they don't stop. There's still things going on, and some of those things that's going on is getting your old back budding going. Autumn into winter. And one of the videos I watched said one of the most important things you can do, specifically for white pine, but I mean, I'm pretty sure Scots Pine come into single flush pines as well, and they tend to put the candles up in the spring, and I don't remember ever seeing a second lot, so single flush. And it's important for, let's find one. So I've got lots of threes here instead of twos. There's a two. Where you get a two, in between a two branch, you know, where there were three candles, you've taken the middle one out and you've now got one going that way, one going that way. There's a crotch in between, and it's important for dead needles and everything to be clear of that area, because back budding can occur in that area. So it's quite important to clear that area out. We've got a couple of spiders on this, but as far as bugs are concerned, I don't count those as bugs. They're useful critters that destroy other bugs by eating them. So we leave our spiders on outdoor trees. I don't have any indoor trees and have no intention of ever having any. I've had people ask me about Chinese elms. I haven't got any, and that's another tree I probably won't have any of. I may do one day, but my worry with those is that they tend to be commercially produced, a lot of them, and they all look the flipping same. Well, they do to me. There's no individuality there, which is what I like about bonsai, is putting people who put their own stamp on the tree. And it might not follow the guidelines. I won't call them rules, because I don't believe in rules. What's the old saying? Rules are made to be broken. They're guidelines, and as guidelines they're really useful. As rules you can get bogged down, and if you look at some of the best bonsai around, you'll often find they break a lot of rules. So somebody decided that rules weren't for them, and as a consequence developed some absolutely stunning bonsai. So you can do with that as you see fit. See, I got a branch there heading downwards. That got missed when I wired. It might have been heading upwards, and as a consequence of wiring the rest of that branch, the branch got turned and that bit ended up facing the wrong way. That's probably what happened. But I'm not the world's expert in wiring. I do it as a thing that sort of on some trees just needs to be done. Especially if the shape that the tree currently has is not your effort. You know, it came in like that, and although it was a tree that you liked the look of, it wasn't in your eyes perfect, and as a consequence you did some work on it and you changed its shape. That's what we do. Well, so far I haven't seen a bug. I've seen a few little spiders desperately trying to get away, but I haven't seen any bugs yet. It's quite easy to get Grayscale on a pine, and they get right down at the base of the needles, and they're very easily missed, quite honestly. You know, especially as you know, there's a fair bit of the year where you do very little apart from chuck water on the things. And if you're chucking water on the things, especially if you're using a hose from a distance, because you don't want to blast all the media out of the pot, so you stand back a bit, don't you? You're not really having a good look at the tree at that point. You're just watering it and perhaps feeding it as a consequence, but you're not having a good look. And so they can get in there and get a hold. So I thought I'd just found some. But Grayscale are a menace. They, they get in the base of the needles and can be quite inconspicuous, but they're constantly biting and sucking the goodness out of your tree. And the damage that they cause can lead to infection. So it's not just a matter of they're sucking the life out of your tree. They can lead to additional problems as a consequence of just being there and feeding away unobserved. So it does pay to have a good close look sometimes. And if your eyesight's not so good, get a magnifying glass. A couple of quid. And then you can be out there playing the detective. All good fun. Right, I'm nearly done with this now. There's not too much more. But you know, there's dense pockets of needles like this that are cramming up the area, blocking out the light. So you can see there is a good need to do this, to get them all out. And then if you've got wiring on your tree and you've been poking and pushing around like I have, then you need to revisit your wiring and reset it. Just check that everything's roughly where it's going to be. And certainly with pines to a degree, you're looking at the tree setting during autumn and winter, when the growth goes right back down to next to nothing and the tree hardens. That's the point at which a lot of your branches will set. Come the spring, when that burst of energy comes forward, everything starts to swell up. That's not a good time to leave your wiring on, unless you've wired relatively loose and you've allowed for it. So, right, it's going to be difficult for me to look into wiring at the moment because I can't see the apex because I'm not tall enough, but the apex doesn't look too bad actually. That was the bit that had the heavy wiring. Now, as a consequence of some of the wiring, I've got what I'm going to call tangles. So here we have tangles, but what do I do? To remove the tangle, I'm going to remove many of my branches, so I'm reluctant to do it. But we may have to do some adjustments along those lines, whereby what the back budding we get now, we can revisit in the spring. Where there's back budding, a branch that's on the end of where the back budding has occurred could come off. Some tangles could be thinned out, but it'll depend entirely on where growth comes. And it's worth noting that on pines, you've got a window of opportunity, and it's geared up to the age of the branch. Now obviously your branches extend, and you know, you've got 1 year's worth of growth, your new candles that you may have pinched back a bit, but that's this year's growth. Then you get the buds and some back budding, and you get some new growth. But there's a point on the branch, like this, let's just take this little branch here, yeah? That goes back to there, and then that was a triplet, so that was allowed to become 3 branches. But I've made use of those 3 branches to make this pad look better, closer into the trunk, by just manoeuvring them. But what we've got here is a long bare branch. Now depending on how old that is, after a certain point in time it will never backbud ever again. So you're stuck with the growth on the end of it extending, or you take it off. Those are the 2 choices, but you won't get backbudding in some areas depending on the age of the branch. Right, well, I'm not going to muck about with the wiring too much. I need, I know it sounds daft, but I need to stand on a chair. I need to get up here. I need my eye level to be here to see what I'm doing. This pad I'm okay with. This one's okay. It'll have to be okay because there's hardly any wiring on it at all. Yeah, so this side of the tree, I don't want the triangle effect here. I wanted an oval effect. That is, sounds like a Sea King. It's something heavy anyway. Heavy helicopter, but not a Chinook. So basically I wanted this because the idea is that the tree slopes in this direction. But then when you get a branch like that, hanging down like that, it's not working as it should, so we'll tuck it up in there. But yeah, there's still some work to do, some tidying to do. But we're not doing bad. I mean, this tree was very badly neglected and was in a bit of a state. Well, we've managed to get some separation on these pads by actually lowering this one down. And that's actually worked quite well. So we've lowered this pad down, which gives us more separation here. We've got to do the same with this one, but there's only so much you can do in one go. But just simple little movements like that cluster the pad to make it more level. This bit's annoying me, but it's going to have to annoy me at the moment. This bit, I wanted this to sweep out and give a nice curve, so we don't want bits like that sticking out, but that hasn't got any wire on it, so I can't do much. What is it? Down near the base, that's better. So this bit is straggly, so what I will hope for is that some of these areas here backbud a bit and they can be trimmed back, and that way we can tune that pad a bit better. But overall, this isn't a bad tree. It breaks all the rules. I mean, the first branch on the right hand side isn't the first branch. It is, but it's 2 because it comes out here. This branch here starts there, yeah, and comes down and splits into 2 and forms 2 pads. That's a little bit naughty, but it works. Now over this side you think you've got a pad here and you've got another one here. No, you haven't. You've got one branch. Starts all up here, yeah, and it comes round to there, and in fact forms my back branch and my first left hand side branch. Yeah, but it's a split. It's effectively one branch, and then when we get up in here, the tree sort of lurches over that way and has been brought back over as a consequence. So, and we've got our shari and our couple of gins. Yeah, so we could think about some more gins, like with this tangled mess here. wooded gin look nice here, but we're going to lose a lot of greenery to do so. So I'm not desperate to do that sort of thing, I must admit. But anyway, dead needles off, let the light in, and hopefully that will encourage back budding, letting the light in. You're effectively opening up the solar panels, aren't you? It's the sun that comes in and the photosynthesis feeds the tree. The more the tree's got pushing, the more likely it is to produce back buds. If it's weak, it's just not going to do it. It's going to hold its own and that's about it. But hopefully not go downhill. But not a lot of yellowing leaves. I can remember in years when this wasn't being looked after, you not only had the dead leaves, which is normally 3-year-old, but some of last year's needles went yellow. The tree didn't have enough strength in it, didn't have enough oomph, basically. And the only other thing I want to do is just make sure the surface, get the moss off, this type of moss anyway, because this moss produces very deep roots, is just make sure the surface is loose and not compacted, because we're going to go into the rains and the rains will beat down on the pot. Yeah. I don't mind some needles on the surface, this is natural. If the tree was living in the wild, it would be living in 2 inches of needles and they would rot down and die back. And I believe they help feed that white fungus stuff that runs through your root system on pines, or it should do if you've got a healthy root system. When I repotted this, we deliberately saved some of that from the old compost media, because there was plenty of it, and we saved some, de-weed it while we're at it. And we've saved some and mixed it in with the new media. So hopefully that will have spread throughout the pot. So there we go. That's all it's going to get. Just loosen it. And that will also help moisture not sit on the surface. It will help it go straight down through and out the bottom. That's my theory, what I add. So there we go. Quick tidy up. And I haven't got many other trees that I need to do that to. My other Scots Pine that I collected at the beginning of last year, not the one that died, annoyingly, because that was the better one, the one that I just yanked out of the ground, that hasn't lost many needles at all. And the needles it's lost have fallen off, so they don't need any help, because there weren't enough to cluster together like there were on this one. You get those dense clusters in the in the forks of the branches, which is just where you may get some back budding. So just get the dead needles out. That's the best thing. So there we go, an autumn tidy up. Yeah, it looks better. It looks a lot better. All those dead needles have been annoying me from a distance. Right. See you next time. As I say, if you've got this far and put up with me boringly taking needles off a tree, then if you're not subscribed, it'd be awfully nice if you did so. It'll help the channel grow. The channel's doing okay. I'm quite pleased because it's a new channel. I'm quite pleased with its progress, but yeah, if you're not subscribed, please think about doing so. And I'll see you next time. Thanks for dropping by.